Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the Second Opinion Sports Medicine Podcast. This is Dr. Dhokal.
This is Dr. Glass.
We are back together. How are you, man?
I'm doing good, buddy. It's good to be back. I don't know. There's something about the energy when we get to do this, whether it's in person or through Zoom. It just feels good. I was kind of excited. The juices were flowing all day, just in anticipation for today. And then here it is. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to where we can carve out the time to do multiple episodes or multiple, sessions a week versus just one a week, which is nice, but it's been busy for you, busy for me, I know, and it's hard to sometimes carve the time out, but I'm glad when we do, for sure.
Yeah. Yep. No, looking forward to it. Yeah, as we talked about, it's about the journey, it's about the process, and we're definitely experiencing that. Our ups and our highs, our lows of this. We're definitely learning tons, man.
Yeah, that's for sure.
If our viewers could only hear and see the first 20 minutes of what we just went through just to get the audio and the lights and everything, this is awesome.
Right.
I'm calling us out on, but
I was thinking of you a couple of times this week because there was a few sport things that I saw. There's a bunch of stuff happening right now. NBA playoffs, hockey playoffs, right? I know you're a little more into hockey than I am, but yeah, it's an interesting time of the season. The NFL draft happened a few weeks ago. And so there's some combine things going on. I know what I was thinking of you for. It was an NBA player that I saw recently, and I had a few thoughts and questions. But before we jump into that, what's caught your eye on TV, sport-wise, in life?
Well, one of the things, the whole drama with Aaron Rodgers, I told you, I think in the beginning of the podcast, I had an opportunity to coach when I was going through college at PV High, where he went to school. He was a senior. I was helping coach the freshmen at the time. So I always have this, just because they're from Chico. I went to Chico. His dad's a chiropractor. We're chiropractors, so I always have this. I just like following them. Besides him going to Berkeley, that's a whole other thing. I'm not a big fan, but
sure.
He went to Butte College. He's a JC guy that, anyways, it's just, I've always liked following his journey and his path. And besides, great player, he's, but the last couple of years, last couple of seasons, especially last season, just struggling, he's getting up there in age, just like a lot of these quarterbacks. And it's just,
do you think it's his age? Do you think it's age related? I wouldn't say he's declined, but if you say he's declined, do you think it's age, or do you think it's other factors?
I think it's age. I think for him, just seeing it in his face, seeing it in his just demeanor, seeing, he's getting frustrated.
I would disagree.
What's that?
I would disagree. I wouldn't say it's age. I think it's whether you're passionate about it or not.
Yeah.
And I don't know him like that to make that assumption, but I think physically he seems like he's capable. He hasn't been injured. He can still sling the ball.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my next sentence. I don't think the frustration and his attitude and demeanor is age related. I think that part I don't think is age related. I think it's his cast that he's surrounding around, what he has to work with. He's frustrated. It's not the teams of the past.
Sure.
So it just comes to different parts of your career, and then having to make that determination. I'm sure he would have loved to finish out in Green Bay. He's had so many great years and great experiences, and but it just wasn't in the cards. And I think he still has that drive. He still feels like he could compete at the next level. He obviously wouldn't do it if he doesn't feel like he can turn something around and, have a winning team. So, and he had to stick with green, he went to New York. So I guess he's got all
he looks good in green. He looks good in green. He already had the wardrobe.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure, So,
well, what a contrast though, going from, small town Wisconsin to arguably the biggest, city in the world in the sense of media attention. And also the Jets have always been trash. Let's just be honest, and so it's almost like I can't remember a great quarterback since Namath in New York. So it'll be interesting to see how he fits in there, basically, which I'm sure, just like when Tom Brady went to Tampa, like people will morph around the leader, basically. And he's the leader there from day
Yeah.
one,
Yep.
from when he steps foot there.
Yep. Yeah,
So
I'm looking forward, dude. I'm looking forward to rooting for him and cheering for him. I'm not necessarily a New York Jets fan, but I'll be rooting for him. And
what
I'd love to see him. I want success stories. I want people to thrive, and so. And I know he, like you said, he hasn't been plagued with a lot of injuries. I don't remember him. He's never in the concussion talks, So
right.
I feel like if he could just keep his the knees and shoulders moving and lubricated, I think he'll be good to go.
Yeah.
Very smart. He's a smart player. So
No, super cerebral, and also like maybe one of the most gifted arms in the league. He can put the ball anywhere on the field. I don't think there's a route that he can't throw. I don't think anybody argues that. A lot was made of him going on his darkness retreat after the season. I don't see anything wrong with taking some time and meditating or getting away. Yeah, I don't think people realize what it's probably like to have every move that you make scrutinized and have all eyes on you at all times. Even there probably was peace being in Green Bay. He could probably go to the grocery store, probably go do certain things, and there's some, Midwest small town type of hospitality or manners where he's left alone. But in New York, if he steps out, maybe he blends in with the crowd a little bit, perhaps if he's in the masses, but he's it's going to be different.
yeah,
It'll be
he'll
different.
definitely be on a short leash over there.
Yeah.
They will hold him accountable and let him know of every misstep for sure.
It'll be a good thing though. I think it might create some growth for him in the sense of a new experience is always, an opportunity. And all he's known is Green Bay, and Green Bay is a different type of NFL team compared to all the other teams in the league. They're the only team that don't have an owner, So like, who do you go talk to? Who do you go, discuss trades with other than the GM? It's a very weird situation. So, I'm interested to see. Also, the Chargers play the Jets this year. So, of course, when I was looking at the schedule, so the NFL is funny funny or strategic, but they tell you who the teams are who your opponents are, and then they do a teaser, and a month later they tell you when you play those teams, right? So when the schedule got released, it's like, okay, these are our opponents. Obviously, you have the same division opponents, but then you look to see who you're playing out of division. I especially look to see who the road teams are out of division.
Yeah.
And this year, if I recall correctly, we go to New York to play the Jets. I don't know at what point in time in the season, but just recently they dropped the actual schedule. So it's like, I'm making this up, but Jets in September. And, I know the last game of the season is Kansas City, surprisingly in LA, week 18,
Okay.
Chargers versus Kansas City. Last game of the season, some might say that might determine the division, if they're both battling it out. And so I don't recall when we played the Jets, but I think it is in New York, and I'm looking forward to that game. That should be interesting. I don't know if it's prime time, but yeah, you're getting me excited, Dustin. It's only mid-May. I need to chill out.
Well, hopefully it's earlier in the season than later. You don't want these San Diego boys going out to cold New York.
Yeah, and have Aaron develop some chemistry. Like, rather catch him early in the year. I could probably look it up while we're, but anyways, it's not that important.
Right.
Yeah. So that's an interesting storyline. That's one of the most interesting storylines, I would say, of the season, is to see how he does.
Yeah. So what about you? What caught your eye?
I think, well, NBA playoffs going on right now. Being a Kings/Warrior fan, it was tough to see the Kings play the Warriors. I was glad there weren't any major injuries, though. Towards the end of that series, De'Aaron Fox had a fractured finger, which perhaps affected his play. And also in NBA news is, once again, we spoke of him earlier in the year, and you brought him up to me a few minutes before we hit record, was Ja Morant, right?
Yeah.
And how he's in the news with another gun incident. And, look, I'm curious as to what your feelings are on it, because it's a little bit of a polarizing topic maybe for some people. But this is what I do know, is that billionaire owners don't like to be in the news for negative issues.
Mhm.
And beyond that, you're a young athlete. And that's the difference I see between the NFL and the NBA is there's a lot younger kids in the NBA versus the NFL. You have to go to college for at least a minute,
Mhm.
and you're a little more mature.
Yeah.
You enter the league already being ground down to some college regimen. You come straight from high school. Like, I wanted to talk about this NBA athlete who's 1 year in the league. And for some reason in my head, I thought I was going to see like a mid-20s type of guy come in. And he's 20 years old, super nice guy and really, really talented. But I was just blown away. 20. I was thinking of myself at 20.
Yeah.
And not only is he having to perform, but there's a lot of pressure to that. It'd be hard to know how to handle. So, the John Morant thing, he's leaving a lot of money on the table. I think, he's jeopardizing not his career, because if you can play, you'll always probably have a job unless you do something really crazy. But he's not trending in the right direction. I just don't think he has good advice or people around him. If that was you, I'd be like, yo, stop recording and put that shit down.
Well, that's the thing. That's what somebody brought up the other day, because this last incident, he had the first gun incident in the club in March, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
he apologized, and did all the whole statements. And then this just happened in May. He's in a car and he's flashing a gun, and somebody else, they're on live Instagram, So one of the sports commentators said, "Man, you got to surround yourself around people that have your best interest in mind." He's not surrounding himself around people, that have his best interest in mind. So it's sad to see, because he came into the league 2019, I think. Then the first year he was NBA, rookie of the year, and then he made the all-star team the next year. So he's got all this sudden success. I don't know his back history, but if he came from that kind of life where that was totally normal, and now he's having to transition, or if the fame has kind of brought him, around people, and he's doing whatever, hanging around the wrong people. I don't know. I would think my knee jerk would be, it's always been in him. Now with this fame, he's having a hard time, mending both, lifestyles.
I think you can be from two different worlds. I think you
Yeah.
can be from a different world and then carry yourself in a different type of way when you're in a different environment. And that doesn't happen automatically. I think that is a learned behavior, perhaps. And it's probably uncomfortable to be out of your environment. But to me, it's not even that. It's just poor decision making. I had to pause because I was going to speak rawly, but it's just poor decision making. Like, you got to know. I don't care if you're 20 or 25 or you're even 15, you have to know that, going on, really, whether recording it or not, like, going live on any social media platform with a firearm is probably not the best decision. It's just either going to draw negative attention or get you in trouble. And then if you're a career person, that's different than if you're just, a high school kid with no job. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's just poor decision making to me. And
Yeah.
I don't know him or know
Well,
anyone who knows him that
yeah.
well. So,
Well, the first poor decision is packing his gun, to go out,
yeah.
that right there. I mean, and I doubt he has a concealed carry permit, he's,
Well,
so,
I think when you achieve a certain level, if you feel like you need that because that's where you're from or you feel endangered or whatever, then I think you just have to spend the money to have somebody else hold that for you.
yeah.
A retired police officer, somebody else. It can't be you.
Yeah,
It can't
no,
be you.
yeah,
You're the tip of the pyramid. It can't be you,
yeah,
like,
no, yeah,
yeah,
you're
I don't
absolutely
know
right
how.
on that. If you're at that level and you have that fear, then it's a lot cheaper to hire somebody than to deal with the repercussions of doing whatever, and especially if alcohol or drugs are involved, you're not thinking straight anyway. So you need somebody that is sober and can make those good decisions and protect your ass,
You got to have a professional. You can't have your cousin. You can't have your friend,
Yeah,
If
no,
that's me, I love you to death and had my back in some, physical, athletic competitions, but like, I'm not having you hold a piece. I'm not having you, talk down somebody. Like, you're my friend, you're my brother. I'm hiring a professional. Like,
Right.
you deal with it. And then
Yeah.
you talk to the lawyer,
Yeah.
I'm out of it.
Keep
Right.
my hands clean.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm now rich. I have a team. I have
Yeah.
a medical team and I have a lawyer and I have a
Security.
bodyguard and
Yeah.
some security and a nutritionist and a chef,
Yeah.
like
Just
you're
part of the, yeah.
you're a business. You are a business now. So I think he's messing up his business.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. A lot of social media was hitting hard, doing some parallels to Aaron Hernandez's whole thing, so
Oh shit.
and that's scary, but yeah, I mean, it was just getting hit left and right, bringing that up, and I hope it doesn't go down that route, where we find out more later on. But yeah,
Dang, that would be a wild 30 for 30. That's not even a good thing to talk about. Hopefully
I
that's
know,
just
right?
conjecture and just,
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Also, look, there's been a ton of young athletes that have gotten in trouble. And I promise you, some Dallas Cowboys in the 80s had some guns in the car, I'm sure, but there just wasn't a cell phone to record it,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So there is that too.
Oh
I'm
yeah.
pretty forgiving of people unless they make a real bad mistake that affects others. Like if you're making dumb decisions and you're affecting yourself, like
That's on you. Yeah.
that's on you. I chalk that up to growth, but if
Yeah.
that leads to something,
Yeah.
you're showing a weapon, you're showing something, and it leads to something that's terrible.
Yeah, I hope. Yeah, we could just hope that people are seeing that love him and or support him around him, and that he'll be receptive to any kind of support and love, that people around him want to give him. That's the biggest thing. 'Cause I'm
Yeah.
sure he's got tons of people that don't want him going down a bad route, and
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think between now and next basketball season, there'll be, either a fine or some sort of something, like he's suspended indefinitely from the team. Is that what I read?
um, yeah. At least he's not allowed to participate in anything as of right
Team
now.
activities.
Yeah, team activities. I don't know for how long.
Well,
Hopefully, it's a good enough time. Hopefully,
sometimes you need a timeout.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you need a timeout.
Yeah,
And
in the
as
corner.
long as the timeout doesn't put you in a bad environment versus a structured environment, like,
Exactly. Because it could go either way, right?
yeah.
Fork in the road, depending on how you want to take it. And then,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. It reminds me of the Dennis Rodman thing when they're like, you're suspended from the team, and he's like, sweet. And
yeah, right.
he was out.
Yeah.
They're like, maybe it's better not to suspend him, just keep him around where we can keep an
Yeah,
eye on him.
exactly.
That's funny. Well, let me ask you, since we're on the basketball topic, I had an NBA agent that I've known for a while ask me about a client of his who just finished his first year in the league. And like I was saying, for some reason, when he said he's young in the league, I just expected like a mid-20s or somebody older. He's literally 20, and like, he's in San Diego for a few weeks, and I was almost going to be like, where did you go eat? Where did you have something to drink? And it occurred to me like, oh, he can't even go out to the bars. Like, I can't even be like, hey, call me if you step out. Like, I'll meet you for a drink, or let me show you a spot or two in San Diego for happy hour. Like, he can't even do that yet,
Nope.
Look, he doesn't have any problems or anything, but I was thinking of you when he came in. I did an initial assessment. And I'm pausing, so I'm trying to think of his like history. He didn't have any injuries this season. Luckily, he had a little bit of some ankle stuff. But he's super explosive, and his coaches have said to him that they'd like him to play more down, like play lower. He's not exceptionally tall. He's not like he's 6'6" or 7 feet or anything, but I get the sense that maybe, at least this is what was brought to me, is like maybe his like low back is tight, or hamstrings are tight, or hip flexors are tight. Like, he just needs to be like lower in his defensive stance. And I think being a little upright, then you're a little slow to respond, and maybe there's repercussions to that. So getting to the point, there was some asymmetrical patterns. There was like a left, so he's right-handed. He had a left hamstring kind of it was like overly twitchy, spastic a little bit, overly twitchy. Same response on his right, like VMO quad. And a little bit of something, you can call it, in his right scapula trap, like angle of the scapula, superior medial angle of the scapula, that whole area, that whole ridge, right?
Mhm.
Shooting arm, so that makes sense. He's getting a lot of shots up. And even the left leg, I can make up a story in my head why his left hamstring's tighter than his right hamstring. Maybe it is his jump leg, if he's propelling off, he's right-handed. So typically you explode off your left. And right quad, you could say, well, maybe he's landing on that leg. That's his landing leg, not his explosive leg. So I made up this narrative, saying that joshingly, but yeah, I could explain why he might have had some of these patterns. And yeah, reduced hamstring range of motion, definitely hypertonic hip flexor. So there's a few things as far as internal external rotation. Right hip had more external rotation than his left hip did. So there's definitely some stuff. At the end of it, I said, hey, let's work on getting you more balanced in the next session or two. And then I'm going to take some measurables and some objectives and get a plan together and go from there. But since I know once or twice you've had your hands on some NBA players, I thought I might ask you what you thought about a young kid who doesn't seem to have any injury issues previously, but I could see as he's training more and lifting more how some of his current patterns that I seem to have found could lead to something. Also, one little bit of note, you've been really patient in listening to this case.
I like it. I'm picturing it all in my head,
Yeah.
you know how we work. So,
He's had no break really. So he finished high school, had like McDonald's All-American or some summer camp before his freshman year of college, played in college after his first year of college, I think it was, had some Olympic stuff going on. So that summer was shot, came back right into college again, finished again. And then the next off season was his year before his rookie year last year. So that's just combine training. You know how it is, back-to-back camps. Yep. And then you all of a sudden start NBA preseason. Then all of a sudden the season's here and it's a longer season than college. So really, in taking a history, I kind of feel like this kid hasn't had a break, to be honest, in like 3 years almost. You take a whole season in a summer. A normal athlete goes, you have a few months where you're off, you can get away from it. So I do feel a little bit is that, but also he's 20. So like, I was thinking today, like if I had to start sprinting just randomly because I had to catch somebody, I think I might need to train for that because I don't have that, immediately. And so what I'm saying is he's young. I think his recovery is good, but what are your thoughts as I share that with you?
Yeah. So with the experience I've had over the years and working with these guys and at all aspects of their careers, 20-year-old rookies, all the way through to retirement, long 20-year careers, right? Keeps coming back. What I see typically, and if I had a crystal ball or a magic wand, what I would love to do is start fresh with somebody like that and just tell them the importance of taking care of their feet, ankles, and lower leg, and really strengthen and build the strength and endurance of the legs as soon as you can. And I'm talking, beach workouts, running constantly up and down the court, simulating game, because you can shoot all you want, but if your legs give out on you during the season, your shot's going to be off. You need your legs. And if coaches are telling them to get low, and I shouldn't speak on his because I don't know his, but
sure.
But just hearing that, when I'm hearing get low, a lot of times they won't get low because their legs are tired. And
Yeah.
so we stand up when our legs, you would think it's kind of the opposite. Our legs
No,
are
no, you're right.
tired, so we bend over. But when you're fresh in the game, your legs aren't tired yet, but we're still standing up. So our legs a lot of times aren't conditioned enough to stay in that defensive mode or that lower, posture. So we stand up because it's like doing a wall sit. How long can you do a wall sit? That's basically a plank for your legs, right? Even though you're not moving and contracting, your body starts to fatigue because it's sustained contractions
Hmm.
under load. And that's basically when you're doing that and then having to move, having to stay down, and they're in that bent posture, flex posture. And if you can't do that for a long term throughout the game, your shot's going to be off. You can't shoot very well.
Yeah.
So that'd be if I could bottle it up and sell it,
Yeah.
that would be what I would want all young players. And that workload you talked about is getting more and more normal. They don't have downtime because they're going from showcases, they're going to camps, then they're, if they're that good and doing the Ronald McDonald stuff, and everybody wants to showcase them going into the drafts, then
Sure.
it's just gone. They don't have downtime, and then the draft, and then they're as soon as they get drafted, they're reporting basically, and
Well, also, at what, I'm going to ask you like this: at what age do you feel like you go from being a young man to a man physically on average? I know it's different for every sport, but we're talking basketball here.
so a young man to a man. Oh,
Yeah, meaning
basketball.
like, yeah, like the reason I ask is because when I was working on this particular person, I'll just be frank, he seemed pretty lean,
Mhm.
he seemed kind of on the skinnier side, right? And
Yeah,
like, I know he's explosive and he has a crazy vertical, but he just seems like he's still young. He's
yeah,
20, right?
yeah,
So like, I think of myself at 20 and I'm not an athlete in that sense. And then I think of myself at 30, like it gives you that time. Like when you're 25 years ago, you were 15,
yeah,
And so
yeah,
I was looking at his legs thinking like, man, he's strong. Don't get me wrong. He's strong,
yeah,
but it just doesn't seem like he's where he's going to be
yeah.
5 years from now. Does
Well,
that make sense?
yeah. Well, exactly. 25, you hit it right there. 25 is the magic number we always talk about, being mentally and physically fully developed, right?
Gotcha.
So 25 would be that anatomical number that most
That's your peak.
academically, yeah, will agree that around 25, that's where you're kind of peaking both your full mental development and skeletal development,
Sure.
and like you said, it varies, right? But so that's where I'd say, and then in the league, I'd say around 28, you is the number I kind of picture. That's a long, you're feeling things more at 28 than definitely when you're hitting 30s,
Yeah.
35, your hormones are changing, your recovery time is way different. But around 28, I think, is when if I had to pick a number, probably would guess a lot of players start feeling the age thing a little more,
Yeah.
which
And,
is funny at 28, right? To think about, like,
yeah. Well, if you've been playing since, say, just take college, don't even take high school. So
yeah,
you start college at 18 to
yeah,
28, 10 years. NBA season's 80 games. College isn't that many games, but you've played well over 10,000 games by the time you're 28.
right,
That's a lot of pounding on the knees. I'm going to share that with him when I see him on Thursday. I'm seeing him twice a week. I have a limited amount of time, 6 weeks, but I feel like in 6 weeks of time, there's some objective data that we can show him and show his parents and show his agent of like, hey, this is where he came in and this is where he's leaving. I think that's just as important to the outside people as to the athlete. Like, let's cut to the chase, no BS. How do you feel?
yeah,
Do you feel better? Do you feel like, you're stronger in the gym or quicker, or you recover faster? There's all these other kind of subjective measurables that I like to ask the athletes that I work with. I used to never keep track of the objective data. Do you know that?
yeah,
Like, other than our kind of notes. And then I realized like, I got to start really documenting the hard data that way at the end of the season I can share with these guys, other than, because at the end of the season you think back like, oh, I felt pretty good if you didn't get injured, you know.
Yeah.
But so anyways, that was something that I wasn't
I'm excited.
super
One
versed
thing-
with early
yeah.
on.
Well, that's awesome, especially because you're going to have a chance in that 6 weeks. That's plenty enough time to make a difference. And it's going to be dependent on what he puts into it, right? Because
Yeah,
you're going to bring your game and give him everything, but it depends on what he can do to make a difference, right? It's not going to just be the 1 or 2 times you see him during the week. He has to put in the time, in my opinion, every single day to capitalize on what you guys did. So it's like, I'll give you the nugget. You go out and do it. You have to repeat. Remember, remind them, hey, neuroplasticity, that's the big
yes,
thing. It takes minimum 300 to 500 times of you doing something just for your brain to say, oh, what do you want me to do? It takes another 3,000 to 5,000 times to actually engrave that pattern. So work backwards, right? If you do
that's
it 1 time
reps.
a day, you're going to get it done. But if
Yeah.
you do it 3 times, it's 3 times as fast, 5 times, 5 times as fast. So now you're shortening down your window, right?
Yeah,
That's 6 weeks. If you can get everything done in 3 weeks and then have another 3 weeks of shining that up, even better, right?
yeah,
But if you only do minimum work, it's going to take. So, it's like somebody tugging on your, a little baby tugging on the shirt. Hey, mommy, 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 and then the mom finally turns, what do you want? That's 300 times of doing that. And then another 3,000 till mom actually does what the kid wants, right?
yes. That's
People
a good
need
way
to
of
hear
putting it.
that, so it's like, we can get this done, but you have to put in the extra, and it's just it's the compounding effect. But I get excited when you have an opportunity like that. For me, like, I'd be like, okay, game time. What have they told you? So I always like to find out, what have they told you? Like, what are the coaches always telling? What are your trainers telling you? What have you been doing? And if they say, oh, we've been doing this for the last year, and okay, well, there's a reason you're here, so let's not do any of those.
Yeah,
Because everybody says, oh, your glutes are weak. Okay, well, I don't believe that, but let's do something else. So what I always like to do is look outside the box and look at the feet. I work on the feet and ankle. I get all those, you got all those bones in the feet, get those moving, and then
yeah,
start working up. Nobody ever focus on the feet. They're boring, but we
yeah,
start doing toe yoga. We start doing rolling out the ball. We start doing all these things. And then I start having them looking more at how are you moving? How are you functioning before I ask you how you're feeling? Because if you start moving better, you're going to feel better, right? So
yeah,
I challenge them to say, listen, I'm not going to ask you how you feel each time. Like you just made up the point. How are you feeling overall? That's exactly what we want them to be able to say when they go back, is like, I'm feeling amazing. But we want them to show, why are you feeling amazing? Because I'm doing things that I haven't been to do. So I'd work on tons of balance stuff, working on all that neurologic firing of those ankles, calves, knees, quads, and getting them in that position and challenging the heck out of the balance, star balance, toe touches on one leg, all kinds of throwing them the basketball, all
yeah,
kinds of crazy stuff that they're not doing on a regular, because it's, work on neurologic re-education. In my opinion, that's what I love doing, neurologic re-education, and keep telling them, hey, we're going to start firing your nervous system. So when they go back to their trainer, hey, what'd you do all summer? Oh, I was doing neurologic work with this guy down in San Diego. What was he doing? Oh, he was just re-educating, showing me that the pattern is, we got to get out of this stuck pattern. So he was breaking my pattern. And
right.
then it's like, oh, it's a whole new language. And it's just a new chapter for him versus doing the same damn strength and conditioning, the same damn,
Same band
massage,
work,
the same
same,
handwork.
yeah,
Yeah. Do everything. Like, I would say, what is your trainer doing? What is this doing? And then just do opposite, oh, they use a Groston tool. Okay, we're going to use this purple tool. Then we're going to
yeah,
use this,
yeah. Switch it up. Yeah,
yeah.
switch it up, especially
Reset.
if the client is there for a reason.
Mhm.
What's interesting, I won't call out the team. Sometimes I pause because I'm like,
Yeah, I hear
should
you.
I speak on this?
Yeah, I do the same thing too.
Well, let me
We're
tell
not
you.
used to being live. We're not used to
Right.
being recorded. We're used to being able to speak freely. It's hard, man.
It's nothing bad, actually. I was just,
No.
let me tell a little side story in that. I think when I started chiropractic school, it was, I know when it was early 2000s, but my uncertainty was in how many NFL teams, because that was my passion, had chiropractors on staff. And it wasn't every team when I started school. And when I finished school, it was more than half the teams. That was like 4 years later. And then in 2010, it was like almost every team in the league had at least one chiropractor on staff, if not multiples, right? So just in a decade's time, it went from just a few to dang near everybody. Now it's definitely everybody. I say that as a preface because I asked him, like, tell me how the first season was, give me everything, right? Like your training routine, what you normally do, what do you do on your off day? How was it being a rookie? Like all these things. And then I ask about their PT, their training staff, like what kind of work does he usually get? And this particular team doesn't have a chiro on staff. So I said, when's the last time you got adjusted? He said about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I said, what? What? Like, are you serious? And he goes, yeah. And I said, oh, well, I felt bad because that was literally my reaction. And then I was like, well, oh, like, are you opposed to it? Or are you adverse? You know, like sometimes some people don't like to get adjusted. They've had a bad experience, or there's a reason that you don't want to get adjusted. I have some athletes that have hardware or whatever, right? So I'm still getting to know him. And he said, nah, like last time I got adjusted, it helped my hips, but the training staff or the head guy doesn't believe in it there. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting, you know? And so I didn't say anything to him, but between you and I think that'll change at some point in time. And if it doesn't, I think whoever is the person calling the shots there, if they don't get the results that they want, then, you know, they might change that person out, I would assume, you know, not that having a chiropractor on staff is the end all be all to your team's total health. But I will say pretty emphatically and with a lot of confidence that it's a part of the equation, you know, especially at the professional level. And, you know, I shouldn't say good chiropractors like you and I bring more to the table than just adjusting a joint, you know, in whatever realm or avenue that is. And so I feel like there's a lot of low hanging fruit with him. He hasn't experienced getting adjusted and the type of body work that I do and just different things. Like it was very, and maybe because he's young and he's not playing very much, right? So I don't want to make assumptions on the reasoning behind it. I haven't had a chance to talk to them at all. I'm just trying to help him out and improve, have him leave in 7 weeks, 6 weeks better than he came in. And so I think there's a lot we can do. That's really helpful advice. I was noticing when he was laying on the table, his right ankle was way more inverted than his left one. And I said, do you do some ankle work? He goes, yeah, I do a little bit. I, you know, had a little ankle issue earlier in the season, sprained it. Said, do you tape it? Do you brace it? He goes, no, I never used to, but they're making me tape it, you know, before games. And I'm like, kind of thinking about it. I would always be taping it, if not taping it and maybe bracing it, unless it feels like it's cutting down on your mobility or your explosiveness. Unless there's a reason, your ankles and hoops, that's like, you got to protect those.
Yeah, that's what's crazy about bracing and taping. I get that asked all the time because there's still like some old school thought process, like as we've all heard. Well, yeah, because they're like, oh, will it make my ankles weaker if I do it?
Sure.
Well, my thing about that is when you're playing, that's not the time to strengthen your ankles. So we're
100%. I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, we're trying to protect them right now.
Yes.
Then when you get out of that, then go get out of the tape, get out of the wraps, and go strengthen them on the off time. But
yes,
when you're playing, you got to protect them. It takes one wrong step on another guy's foot, or just going down and stud and stop and roll it.
Yeah.
Same with any sport, all sports. I'm always, when parents come and ask about bracing, I'm like, listen, I'll give you a rehab program and we'll rehab, but let's protect this. That way your brain doesn't even have to think about it, right? That way you can perform, right?
100%.
We don't need static out there.
Well, I'm excited. I see him on Thursday. He saw my therapist. I have a really good therapist. Her name's Monica. I have a couple A therapists. She's one of them. And I had him see her today because I think it's going to take a couple sessions a week for 6 weeks to really have a fair shot at making an improvement. Once a week over 6 weeks isn't really the frequency or the duration that I think is necessary. I think if we can get closer to 20 hours over the 6 weeks hands-on, that'll be helpful. So I'll keep you posted on how it's going. That's super helpful feedback. Just the emphasis on, like you said, feet, ankles, lower extremity,
It's just so many things I saw over the years with the injuries. A lot of times stem to the feet, the big toe in
Yeah.
particular,
Yeah.
because the way the sudden stops, the big toe screws up, and then what happens is underneath on that muscle, that affects the flexion. I won't go into
Hmm.
all. I feel bad sometimes we go over all this anatomy and bore people, but anyways,
Yeah.
we want to strip that out, because if you lost the mobility in that big toe, what happens is it shuts off the other muscles of the lower leg that doesn't allow the knee to translate right. And
Mm.
so when you stop and the knee keeps moving, then you're putting yourself at more,
More strain.
more susceptible to injury. So,
Sure.
we're always working on that. I learned that early on in my career. I had a guy that was playing with Chicago Bulls, and he was in town working with a strength coach, and the coach knew what I did, and I was using laser at the time, and back in the day, I was one of the only ones that had laser,
Yeah.
the better lasers at the time, and I was getting referrals from all over, from San Diego to LA, because there weren't too many of us. It
Sure.
was Tiger Wood had one, Lance Armstrong had one, Ricky Carmichael had one. All these
Was it
top.
like a class 4 laser? What kind of laser was
It
it? Something
was
special?
what was it? It wasn't a class 4 at the time. They didn't even have class 4s at the time.
Got you.
It was just one of the original cold lasers,
Got it.
low
Yeah.
level, laser. So, so I got referred just to do that on his big toe, and I
Yeah.
started learning big toe issues and how it was going to end his career. And and the agent called me up, and I
Who is
remember
it you're talking about?
I'm not going to say his name.
Okay. I thought
Yeah,
you maybe you mentioned it and I missed it, but
no, he
an
played for
athlete.
the Bulls. It was a big
Gotcha.
name player. You would know his name.
Yeah.
But but he went on to have a very. We started working on other things just besides the laser, because once he was in there, we started talking. But that really catapulted my learning about how much the big toe. This was I was right out of school. 2005.
Yeah.
Graduate 2003, 2005. And so anyways, it was pretty cool. But then, so after that, I didn't want anybody ever to suffer from that kind of, having to make that decision at an earlier part of your career, to have to end because of a big toe, right?
Dude, it's a shame. Yeah.
Yeah. So luckily he was able to go on, and he played for many more years and actually did really well. So I was happy to see that.
That's great.
Not just because of what I did, but I was glad to have a part in that, to get him through to one more season, right? It
For
was at that
sure.
point, it was just like, can I report back? And
Yeah.
I remember talking to the agent from Chicago. It was a cool experience, but you never know how much you're going to learn and how it's going to affect other things. So
Well,
uh,
also to anyone listening, I know you and I always get caught up in like one-on-one conversation, and I guess that's really what this platform is supposed to be. But it, if I was a young person in sports medicine, it would be nice to be reminded as you're learning every day. Look, I remember being in school thinking, I can't wait till I graduate because then all my tests are over, right?
yeah,
And then like you graduate and like maybe for a while you're kind of just like resting on the knowledge that you already gained because you're a graduate and you're badass, you graduated, stuff.
yeah,
And then a case comes in and you don't know as much as you think. And so you start learning about that particular thing. And then you realize, I'm learning this is like an everyday thing. This
yeah,
isn't just like I graduated school. Like
right,
I really got to wrap my head around, I'm going to learn something every day.
yeah.
And
That's
so
the
by doing so from, 1998 to present, now it's been 25 years of learning something every day on the body and specifically for athletics and movement. Finally it adds up.
yeah,
Like you don't have to be a genius, you just have to be crazy enough to be persistent, in the
yeah,
sense of if you learn one thing a day for 25 years, you're going to be an expert.
yep,
And everybody can learn one fact a day. Like even
yeah,
on my slowest days, I could learn one fact a day.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just in school, you're trying to learn hundreds of facts in a day
yeah.
and you feel like
Snapshot.
I'm never going to get this.
Yeah,
So I guess my message is it's important to always keep learning, because you could have graduated and not decided to learn about cold laser or learn about these other modalities or some stuff that we're learning today. It
yeah,
takes, look, there's a unit that I'm using now that I almost didn't use for whatever reason. And now I'm thinking about putting out some content on all the benefits of using this unit, and partly just so I can like have some stuff to send my patients to, so I don't got to always explain the same things. It's like almost a selfish thing for me where I'm like, well, let me just automate this and make this easier.
Yeah.
But that's a really cool story. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
No, it's good stuff. But
I
yeah,
always like it when there's something new that is, well, maybe new is not even the word, but something that is newer out that you have some knowledge on that maybe not everybody knows about quite yet, and you're able to open some people's eyes or help some people out, whereas in some other directions or avenues they might not have been getting the right answers or making progress.
yeah. Well, speaking of that, I think it was last week or the week after, and I got to call him back. I feel bad. But guy down your way, a company, the concussion protocol. Remember, we were talking early on during the TUA thing that
Yeah.
somebody's going to come up with some technology, and that needs to be so you have more objective findings, and it could be done on field or in locker room or whatnot. That, well, I got contacted, and this thing, it's called the iBox. It's
Okay.
unbelievable, and I'll tell you more about it offline. Well, and then maybe we can do a segment on it.
I think I saw you using it.
Yeah, he came to my
Okay.
office, did a demo on it, and the information you get within the first, I think it was 4-minute test, 8-minute test. I think it was 4 minutes, but even if it's 8 minute, the results you get. The cool thing too, it doesn't need to be calibrated each time.
Wow.
So, and it uses all these, well, we'll go over it, but all these little, infrared lights, and, I don't want to do it
A
undue justice.
disservice by,
Yeah,
by
disservice. Yeah.
yeah.
So I don't want to, because I want to do it right and say the right things, because it's going to be a game changer, and I'm really excited. I actually talked to him, and he's down in your way. He asked your name, and I asked him if he'd come on the podcast with us, and he
Awesome.
said for sure. So it'll be cool to be able to show people how it's working, have him talk about it. Like I said, there's nothing else out there. It's FDA cleared too, which is
Wow.
the only one that's FDA cleared. And they've been doing it for years. So it's not this one-off, saying, that they can do this stuff, but it's very accurate. So anyways, I'm excited
That's
about that
cool.
technology. I just got sent a box in the mail, and I'm going to post it later, from another company. Sent me a couple new great products that
Sweet.
got to test out. So I'll share those with you. I'm
Sweet.
excited about that. So yeah, learning new technology. And I think whatever the technology you were talking about that you're going to do a little social media on or whatever, I think that's great. Educational pieces. I can't wait to learn from you on, that piece of device. So
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes I forget that what is maybe something that you're exposed to often and seems a little common might not be common to everybody, and I was just telling someone like, yeah, this kind of helps. You can think of it like it helps breaking up adhesions or helps kind of melt scar tissue, so to speak. And then I explained like how it works and why I said that. And she's like, I didn't even know that was possible,
yeah,
and
right.
it just made me think like, dang, there's how many people have the same issue where they've been trying, this particular person tried 3 different things, 2 of which were invasive, and she's had 3 out of, I recommended 12 sessions. She's had 3 out of the 12, and she's like, I haven't felt this good in months. Like,
Awesome.
she walked in the door and she's like, I haven't felt this good in months, before I was even like, hey, how's your day? How,
Yeah.
and I said, man, that's great. Let's go, So
Yep.
I like to hear that. It's not an everyday thing. And I also say none of those things, whether it's the, what I'm talking about or any other thing, there's not one thing that's the thing for everything,
Mhm.
And I think one of the hard parts and one of the also the cool parts of our job is discerning what avenue or which direction to help a patient go down, what path to go down so that they can achieve the results that they want, And that comes with experience and a lot of exposure to different things to know what's bullshit and what's
Mhm.
effective,
Right.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting, dude. I always like to hear what you got going on.
Yeah, for
There's
sure.
always something.
There's more to come for both of us for sure.
Let me let me ask you a little side question real quick. Do you feel like most hoopers are lean, or do you feel like, let me ask you directly, um, some of the more prominent superstars that you've worked with, multiple people, not just one or two, were their lower extremities shockingly, strong, or were they just, kind of what you would expect a normal 6'6" professional athlete to look like? And the reason I say it like that, I've worked on a couple of running backs where I'm like, God dang, your legs are like tree trunks, or your biceps
That's
are
the word
just
that came
like,
into my mouth. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm wondering, because people think of hoopers as being tall and lean, but from what you said and the way that you said it, it makes me think that there was at least a few people that put so much emphasis. Look, I grew up in the baggy shorts age, so you couldn't
Yeah.
see the tough quads.
Yeah.
Now that they're a little shorter, maybe you can see some VMO and see some, definition. But what's your thought on that?
So a couple besides the big men, right? Those guys
Yeah,
are huge. I
of
mean,
course.
yeah, I mean, it's just they're just giants. It's
I'm not
enormous.
talking about the Shaqs. I'm talking like
Yeah.
point guards, forwards, like, you know,
No, to be honest, surprisingly, thinner legs, thinner. But here's the thing: so super strong, and
mhm,
their endurance is just off the chart.
off the
But they're
charts.
not they're not big and defined. Like I mean, they're defined. Every muscle fiber is working.
Sure.
So, but surprisingly, thin.
Yeah.
But they've maximized their full potential on their legs, right?
Yeah.
So they bulked up as much as their body frame can tolerate.
Yeah.
So they're very proportionate. But when you go when you're with them, you're like, man, like they're not, they're just very proportionate, but I
Sure.
mean stronger than
Yeah.
it's awesome. It's awesome to see, but you would not look at them going, man, those are some big legs.
Yeah, that makes sense to me in a weird way. I kind of also feel like anyone listening to this might think this is a weird conversation, perhaps,
Right.
but no, that makes sense to me. The gentleman I was working on, I was basically like, "Oh, you're a cheetah," and he
Yeah.
goes, "Yeah."
Yep.
He goes,
That's the thing.
he was face down on the table, and he goes, "Yeah."
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, but that's the thing. You wouldn't look at them going, man, you got big legs, you're big, strong legs, but they are strong and they're fast
Yeah,
and they can go for days. They have to. You
yeah.
mentioned how many games they have and how many times up and down the court. I mean, it's nonstop.
You want to check your endurance level? Go run up and down the court nonstop for about 6 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, forget it.
And then do it in a game where you're like sprinting, jogging, stopping,
Change
jumping,
direction.
cutting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll
Yeah.
check you quick.
Yeah, for sure.
Basketball shape's great though. When you're in basketball shape, that's like a wonderful place to be. I feel like you feel so strong and cardiovascularly efficient and strong. It's
No, I don't know. I've never been there. You lost me at basketball shape.
yeah. Well,
So, but I can imagine. Good for
it's
you, man.
it's different. Well, it's been many, many years, I will say, but I do remember it. It
Yeah.
used to feel good.
I'm good within 20 yards.
Yeah, that's it. Don't let them don't let somebody catch don't let somebody better not let you catch them is what I was trying to say.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, we're coming up on the kind of hour mark here, but I wanted to ask you about something that you brought up that I thought was super interesting because I hadn't heard it at all. And it was about Bo Jackson. Do you want to
Yeah, man.
repeat what you said about that? Because first of all, I've never heard that before in my whole life, and I didn't know that
Yeah.
about him because I think he's one of the goats.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the headline was, I can't remember exactly what the headline was, but it got my attention because it was like, something about NFL great Bo Jackson going in for medical procedure or world's praying for Bo Jackson. And I'm
Oh
like, what
man.
the, how they give these little
Yeah.
teasers. I'm
Make you
like,
click
oh,
it.
yeah. And I'm like, okay, so click on it. And it's talking about that of all things, he's had hiccups for a year long,
Wow.
nonstop hiccups that he can't stop. And I'm like, man,
That
like, and
sounds
then
terrible.
yeah. So I did a kind of a deep dive into it and I wrote down some notes because it's something weird, you don't hear about it, but it's, basically the involuntary contraction, and, of the diaphragm, but several different causes. And the definition, I wrote that down because longer than 48 hours, if you have hiccups for longer than 48 hours, that's a long time. That's called persistent hiccups. So you got persistence. If you have them for longer than 2 months nonstop, which I'm like, forget that.
2 months.
It's basically intractable hiccups, difficult to manage. So he's been dealing with this for a year. And so, and that, yeah, I mean, I was trying to think, well, when's the last time I had hiccups? And it's never been like a big deal. It just happens a couple times.
For a few minutes, it goes away.
Yeah. And, I was trying to learn more about it, but, let's see. Basically, it's when the diaphragm spasms, right? And makes the larynx and the vocal cords close suddenly. So I never really looked into what a hiccup was, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to do a deep dive. So each spasm of the diaphragm makes the larynx and vocal cord, so in your throat right here, close suddenly, and that sudden basically what happens is it forces air into the lungs really fast, and then the way the body changes that is it seeps air out and you get that noise.
Gotcha.
So,
what's the noise like? Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, you got me. Yeah, there you go. So basically the reason I want to bring this up, because we all heard okay, what do you do for your hiccups, right? So
hold your breath or something. Yeah.
There's all these kind of weird things. Do you guys have a family thing that
I not really. I was always told hold your breath type of situation, or maybe blow into a bag, like some CO2 type of something. But I can't recall right now, but literally this week, oddly enough, I would bet you $20 that I'm accurate on this. I was doing some paperwork and I heard on the news or on the TV that they came up with a cure for hiccups, and the other host was like, cure for hiccups, that's been unsolvable for centuries,
amazing.
And then it was one of those coming back after the messages, the cure for and I don't remember what it was, but I wish I would have paid attention. Now maybe somebody should tell Bo Jackson if that story was real. He might save a surgical. What were they doing for him? They were going to do a surgical procedure?
I was diving into it. He said he was going into a procedure later this week to have it. Basically a couple things I did a deep dive into was that you got the phrenic nerve and the vagus nerve that goes through the neck and into the diaphragm that make the diaphragm contract. So any kind of damage to that. So, boxers, kickboxers, any kind of head trauma to the throat, neck, or the head too. You can have, from TBIs, concussions could cause that disruption and cause that nerve to be irritated, inflamed, causing the misfiring of that diaphragm. So they would have to examine that. Then you could have some more serious central nervous system neurologic issues that have to be investigated, like certain tumors, on different parts, MS, those are some other, things. So hopefully it's nothing like that. Hopefully it's just irritation of those two nerves that could be helped and managed. Then there's, other, regular things around like drinking too much alcohol, eating too fast, taking in too much air, alcohol, tobacco use. So hopefully it's nothing too serious. Hopefully they can take care of his. I looked up some of the more common home remedies for it, and I thought some of them were kind of funny.
Yeah.
Which some of them I've never heard. The paper bag you nailed, so that was good. I've never heard of a teaspoon of granulated sugar. I don't know how that's gonna. I would think you'd get more inflamed. So I'm not recommending that one. But something about the granulated, not powder, you'll choke. I don't know.
Yeah.
So hold your breath, what you called. You got that one. Cold water. So not warm water, cold water. I don't know. You want to kind of constrict things.
That could cause some shock or some constriction, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Pull on your tongue. Never heard that. Never heard that one. This one was the most weird one I've never heard of. Lift your uvula, which is the, the punching bag at the back of your throat. Take a spoon and lift it. I don't want to touch that. Like, why would you want to touch it inside your mouth? That little,
Oh, yeah, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, that sounds terrible. Like, I don't understand that one. So,
you just like substitute. Like, how do you get rid of a bee sting pain? Yeah. Oh, you get bit by a rattlesnake. You know, like,
exactly.
You just forget about the bee sting.
Yeah. So shove the spoon in your throat and gag again. So that was the other thing. Try to gag or try to burp. Kind of like we. Anyways, knees to chest was another one. I've never seen anybody with hiccups drop to the floor and do knees to chest, but I never heard this one too. We do this in practice. Any kind of disc pain or nerve pain, we ask patients to do the Valsalva maneuver. So where you hold your breath and nose and bear down really hard, like you're passing a bowel movement. Never heard that one. Maybe if you shit yourself, you'll stop hiccups. I don't know.
That's one of those that the hiccups aren't the problem anymore.
And this is my favorite one because like anytime I have hiccups or any kind of thing like that where my body's just kind of misfiring, I gravitate towards this one. And the biggest one is just relax. Try to just breathe through it. Try to calm yourself because it's a spasm, right? So just like any other spasm, I'm going to try to breathe through it and relax. So I like that one, but those were some of the kind of weird ones. My wife's family was always 10 small 10 small sips. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's like, so I never believe her. That's full of it, but that's their thing every time. And so I think it's funny.
If I was with my cousins, I'd say it'd be like, oh, your diaphragm is spasming. Let me just judo chop you in the gut and see how that feels. That's going to unspasm it,
There you
go. Well, I wish Bo Jackson the best of luck. Hopefully it's not a procedural type of situation, but if he's had it that long, like hopefully someone has the answers. I wish him well. He's dealt with a lot injury wise, and he's man, we could spend a whole episode talking about Bo Jackson. And I think I told you before this podcast started that through like two degrees of separation, someone's father that I know wrote one of the autobiographies for him. So I think it'd be cool just to hear some Bo Jackson stories from the source,
Would love that.
When we were growing up, he was like the Deion Sanders, really at the same time, the only person playing football and baseball at the same time. And, big Nike campaign, big commercials, like I was going to say he was just doing it all, but that'd be a bad pun on Nike's just do it. So, but he was the man. He was the man. Yeah.
That was good.
It's interesting.
Speaking of baseball, real quick, I just wanted to bring up, did you see that pitcher get hit by that line drive?
I did not, no.
This week, it was Ryan Feltner of the Rockies. Basically took a 92-mile-an-hour hit right to the back of the head. So he threw it and it was followed through, took it right. You can't get out of the way of a 92. And
wait. The batter got hit by the pitch, or the pitcher got hit after the batter hit the ball and it came back, hit the pitcher?
Batter hit the ball, and the pitcher got hit.
Okay, got you.
So they clocked it at 92-mile-an-hour exit velocity off the bat. So, and that's a close distance right there, and no reaction time. I mean, it's very hard. Sometimes you see a guy get his glove up or whatever, but worst case scenario, caught him right in the back of the head, right here on the right side, and knocked him down. Actually ended up with a skull fracture back there and a concussion. He was able to get up and walk off on his own, but so scary. Interesting thing about that is they put him on a 15-day injured protocol. Skull fracture and concussion, 15-day. Different than NFL, right? So obviously he's going to be monitored. Obviously he's got to heal that. It'll be interesting to see if they put a little plate there or anything. Like when the basketball players get a broken nose, they put the nose guard. It'll be interesting if he has anything like that. But the interesting thing about this, I wanted to know where he got hit because when he came up, there was no blood or anything, but they said back of the right head, and that's basically where the parietal lobe and the occipital lobe are, and the right side controls the left side. So as a right-handed pitcher, you know, you would think, oh, well, luckily it's not his right hand, because that part of the brain affects, you know, sensory and motor coordination as far as mapping things out and things like that. Not necessarily, it does work on muscle movement and stuff, but basically the sensory part of things too. So on that left side, you know, you're coming down, your legs are so important in pitching.
Sure.
And so that gets missed a lot. And so I'm very curious to see how that's going to affect his plant leg when he lands on that left side. It also affects his left eye. So if hit the right back affects left eye visual acuity and figuring out you know, the perception and how to map it, right? So he's looking at a target, he's got to throw that target. So I'm hoping it doesn't affect him, but those are the things that a lot of people don't start taking
Think
into
about.
account. Okay, where did you get hit? Remember, just like a concussion, this is basically a concussion. He has also a fracture on top of that.
Yeah.
So it hit him hard, so hard that it
So
fractured
hard.
his skull.
Yeah.
Right. So, and definitely if you fracture the skull, you're going to have, you know, a bruised part of the brain there. So, and how's that going to affect, and how are we going to heal that, you know? So I'm just hoping that he has people looking at his brain more than just his musculoskeletal component at the back of the head, and just trying to heal that, because for a pitcher, it also affects the feeling, the sensation, you know, again,
Sure.
it's in his glove hand, so it's not as important, but still, you know, I
That's all
just hope
stuff that you'd want to think about, you know?
yeah,
If
for
that
sure.
was your primary client, that's your
Yeah.
A1 guy, that's like you're covering all those bases.
Yep,
You should.
100%. And now that I've seen what this, you know, the iBox will do, that's
Yeah.
something I would say you got to get him on that as soon as possible. And because what it does will allow you to see the progression of the healing at the central nervous system level. It hits all those cranial nerves of
Man,
the eye. That's what it measures. So if you can objectively measure how they're moving, you'll know if he's healing or not. So
is this like a concussion protocol? I'd like to spend a whole topic on this because I have a lot of questions about it, but is it something that in a perfect situation you have a baseline before an injury occurs, or is it something that is just a measurable even post injury and you can track progress going up?
cool thing is, yeah, it's nice to have a baseline for everybody. You don't need it because it's measuring the cranial nerve reaction time.
I
And
got
they've
you.
done so many studies to know what a normal range is, that
Sure.
bell curve. So they know the variations and the variances of all that. So you don't need one, which is
Okay.
huge. Which
Yeah.
is huge. Unlike a lot of testing where you need to calibrate and you need to have a baseline, which isn't always accessible, right? A lot of people don't have that baseline. So that's what's cool about it.
Not to This will be the last question to ask about this, I promise. But so just thinking a little bit deeper, then is there, say, you know, you're testing cranial nerves and one shows up being, you know, say just slower, right? Like your reaction time slower, there's a deficit there. So then there's a proactive way of maybe ascertaining an issue, would you say?
Yeah, for sure.
Man,
Yeah,
I'd love to have some of my NFL guys do this before the season starts.
bro, this is what we've been talking about,
Yeah.
like what we need to do for our clients. So it's
Yeah.
pretty exciting. So we'll talk more about it. We'll get
Okay.
Justin. His name's Justin Johnson. The awesome company. He's right
Sweet.
down your way. Um, you know, he said he would already, you know, meet up with us, and if we wanted to do it on the podcast, they love that kind of stuff. You know,
Let's do
they're
it.
trying to get out. They've already, you know, they're backed. It's going to be a big thing. You're going to hear all about it. So,
Well, we're pretty booked May-wise schedule, but in June we only have one guest scheduled at the moment, so maybe we could get them in.
perfect.
The calendar's open for a couple dates.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
That's good. We'll do that.
talk more. Let's talk more like midweek about it, perhaps.
Perfect.
Yeah, man. Well, I want to keep talking because there's a few other you know, injuries. Just like I said, it's been busy in the sports world, but as you know, I moved into a new location, a new office, and I have to go back there this evening for what I thought yesterday would be a 1 hour session, and it was 2.5 hours. And so I have a feeling tonight will be 2 hours as well. And so I'm going to bid farewell as this week is kind of wrapped up. But any final thoughts for you? Any highlights coming up this week between now and the next time we talk?
Yeah, my daughter's coming home. My daughter from college is coming home tomorrow, so
Hey,
super excited. Yeah, I haven't
nice.
seen her since Christmas time, so
Oh
it,
no, it's a long time.
yeah, yeah, it's killer long time. So we're super excited. Yeah, yeah,
Good.
um, yeah. So
That's
I'll keep you
exciting.
up. Yep, for sure.
That's
Um,
good. I think it's always nice when you have, if you don't have a highlight in the week, you got to create one or make one or have something,
yeah,
because if it's just monotony every day and that's, you're not super passionate about the things you're doing, then that's, makes it much harder, right? So
yeah,
I'm glad you have a couple things to look forward to. I'm glad we got to talk tonight.
yep.
That
What
way you
about
can
you? What do you
enjoy
got?
family time.
What are you looking forward to?
I have it's kind of boring but important to have some important tasks to take care of this week. I
The
didn't tell you
office,
this, but my car got broken into last week, and of course
bro.
they took like my Beamer mat, they took my doctor's bag, a bunch of
Oh,
stuff. So I got to do some documentation and some
oh,
insurance reports, police reports, just some tedious stuff that I wish I didn't have to do. It feels like shitty homework. That's what it
yeah,
feels like. But
yeah,
it's just adulting, I just got to
yeah,
handle. If I was 17, I'd be like, Dad, can you do this for me? Like,
yeah,
I lost all my stuff. I don't know what to do, but
yeah,
there's no one I can turn to. So I got to handle these annoying little
yeah.
tasks.
That
But
sucks.
yeah, it's, hey, sometimes have little setbacks or things happen, and it's one of those things. I got too much going on to let it slow me down too much, so
Yeah,
uh yeah, I'm looking forward to taking care of those things, just because they're kind of necessary thorns in my side, so I have a little bit of that. I have some patient stuff I need to take care of. I guess you asked me highlights. Those are kind of highlights to me. They've
well,
been on
you're
my
checking
to-do
them off.
list.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you check them off. Yeah,
I just got to handle biz. I'm trying to get in a rhythm of my workouts again. With the office move, my schedule has been a little off, and it's been busy, but all positive things. So I'm hyped about it. I'm looking forward to a week of progress, and looking forward to seeing you in person next week
yeah. Monday.
when we have David in the office. So
Yeah, looking forward to
that'll
it.
be good. All right, man. Well, tell Leanne I said hello. Enjoy the time with the fam this week, and let's touch base sometime during the week when you have a few minutes on a commute or something. We can catch up about a few things, and I can give you an update on that hooper we talked about.
Okay, yeah, love it.
You're the man. Well,
Sounds
thank you
good,
guys
brother.
for listening. I appreciate the time, Dustin. This is the Second Opinion Sports Medicine Podcast. We're back, and we'll be back again with you guys next week with a special guest. I'm excited to talk to this gentleman. Man, I'm hyped to have you in office, and excited to have a conversation, have him break down some things that he's excited about. So we'll do
Sounds
that
good.
next week. This is Dr. Dhokal signing off.
Dr. Glass.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for the time, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Thank you so much, everybody. Stay safe this week. Be healthy, and we'll tune in and be back with you guys in a few days. Take care, Dustin.
Take care, buddy.
All right, bud. Talk to you soon.